Here's what nobody tells you about buying a new car in retirement. It's not the sticker price that keeps people awake at night. It's the phone call at 2:14 on a Tuesday afternoon. The body shop says, "Sir, that small bump in the Costco parking lot, we're looking at $9,600. And just like that, one ordinary errand becomes 6 months of stress, 2 insurance headaches, and a decision you cannot easily undo. At 35, that's an expensive inconvenience. At 72, it can feel like a crack in the floor beneath everything you spent decades building. That's why this video matters. Tesla may be quietly moving the Model 2 in a direction that matters far more than the rumored price. Not faster screens, not a flashier launch, a structural design that could decide whether one bad afternoon stays a minor repair or turns into the kind of financial hit that changes how you live. I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm here to ask one honest question. If Tesla is truly building the Model 2 around a stronger, more repair-friendly chassis, does it finally make sense for people living on fixed income? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know 3 things: why so many affordable vehicles become expensive after the first accident, why the Model 2's chassis direction could change that math, and why the most dangerous number in car ownership is often not the purchase price, but the first repair bill you never saw coming.
The wrong car at the wrong age. Let me say something directly to the men over 65 watching this channel. You are not afraid of cars. You have owned cars your entire life. You know how fast a salesman can talk, how long a loan can linger, and how quickly a good deal can become a machine that drains money month after month. What you are afraid of is choosing the wrong car at the wrong stage of life. That is a different fear. A wrong decision at 30 is painful but recoverable. You work more, you earn it back, you treat it like tuition. A wrong decision at 70 is not tuition. It is the thing that steals margin from the years when margin matters most. It is the repair that forces you to postpone a medical expense, delay a trip, or start saying yes to help you did not want yet. And that is exactly why modern vehicle design deserves more suspicion than it gets. The industry keeps training buyers to focus on the front end: monthly payment, launch price, incentives, range, horsepower, touchscreens. But most long-term owners do not get financially hurt in the showroom. They get hurt later when the engineering choices hidden behind the body panels start showing up on invoices. That's where the trap has been. There's also a kind of cost that never shows up in the estimate itself. Older drivers don't just pay with money when a repair goes wrong. They pay with energy. You call the shop. You wait. You explain the story 3 times to 3 different people. You arrange a ride to pick up prescriptions. You wonder whether the loaner will be available. You start doing calendar math around doctor visits, groceries, and family obligations. Younger people call that inconvenience. People your age know it can feel like losing control of your own week. That's why a repair-friendly car matters beyond dollars. Fewer hidden steps means fewer chances for your life to be handed over to phone trees, claim numbers, and service departments. A vehicle that's simpler to put back on the road is not just cheaper, it's more respectful of the years when you no longer want to spend your strength solving avoidable messes. The more advanced a vehicle becomes, the more it often rewards complexity. More sensors behind the bumper, more structural layers hidden behind cosmetic panels, more proprietary parts routed through narrow service networks, more calibration steps after even modest repairs. None of that is obvious when you sign paperwork, but every one of those decisions can come back to you after a parking lot hit, a low-speed corner scrape, or 7 winters of salt and moisture. And here's the part younger buyers often miss. If you lease for 3 years, trade often, and let insurance absorb the pain,
Complexity is annoying. If you buy a car outright at 68 and plan to keep it until you're 80, complexity is a threat to independence. That's why this conversation is not really about Tesla. It's about whether the next car you buy is designed to protect you from expensive chaos or quietly expose you to it.
Why cheap EVs become expensive fast. So why have so many affordable EVs felt like a trap? Because affordable has too often meant cheap to assemble, not cheap to live with. A lot of modern vehicles are built so efficiently at the factory that buyers assume they will be equally efficient to repair. They are not. In many cases, they're the opposite. Damage that looks small from the outside travels inward to expensive areas. Simple panels are tied to sensor arrays. A repair that should be 10 labor hours becomes 38. A part that should arrive in 2 days takes 3 weeks because it must move through one authorized channel. That is how a low-speed impact turns into an absurd estimate. Think about the numbers for a second. A minor collision that looks like an $800 problem can become an $8,000 to $12,000 repair once rail checks, ADAS recalibration, module replacement, paint blending, and labor are added. If the damage reaches the wrong structural area, the math gets ugly fast. Now imagine hearing those numbers when your paycheck is no longer growing, when your savings are supposed to protect peace instead of absorbing surprises, and when your biggest goal is simply to keep driving without becoming a burden to anyone. There is another number older buyers should keep in mind: 38 labor hours versus 12. That difference alone can add thousands before paint, parts, and calibration are even finished. So when I say architecture matters, I mean the hidden map of labor inside the repair. That map is often what decides whether the estimate stays human or becomes ridiculous. That is why the Model 2's chassis direction matters. If Tesla is truly building this car so that low-speed energy stays in the outer zones, expensive components stay protected, and damaged outer pieces can be removed and replaced instead of rebuilt and argued over, then the Model 2 is not just another rumored low-cost EV. It is a possible answer to the question older drivers actually care about. Can one bad day stay small?
What this chassis could change. Let us translate the engineering into plain life. There are 4 potential advantages here, and every one of them matters more to a retirement budget than a flashy launch event. First, the core structure may be much harder to bend. Traditional unibody construction uses many stamped parts joined at many points. Every joint, weld, and layered connection can become a weak spot under repeated stress or modest impact. A large, high-strength cast section changes that logic. Fewer seams, fewer small distortions, fewer invisible places where energy can twist something expensive just enough to create a long repair chain. Second, the outer shell may be easier to remove and replace. That phrase matters: remove and replace, not pull, reshape, remeasure, and pray. If the outer shell is more modular, then a Fender Bender can remain exactly that. The damaged piece comes off, the replacement goes on. Labor drops, delay drops, stress drops. Third, the chassis material and coating strategy may help the car age much slower. Most people do not lose money because their car suddenly dies. They lose it because the car ages out underneath them. Rust, corrosion, mounting points that weaken, alignment that drifts. A car that still runs but no longer feels trustworthy enough to justify the next repair. If Tesla is serious about oxidation resistance and long-term structural stability, that matters enormously in snowbelt and coastal states. Fourth, the energy path in a collision may be designed to protect the most expensive parts. That is the part almost nobody explains well, and it may be the most important part of this entire video.
Because the real nightmare on an EV is not cosmetic damage. It is damage that reaches the battery enclosure, motor mounts, or critical electrical architecture. That is when a bad estimate stops being painful and becomes existential.
The end of the $10,000 Fender Bender. Let me show you the difference with one ordinary scene. You are backing out at Walgreens. A driver in a pickup clips your front corner at maybe 5 miles per hour. The bumper looks scraped, the quarter panel is creased. You think, this is annoying, but manageable. 2 days later, the call comes. The shop says the outer damage was not the real issue. The impact nudged the support behind the fascia. A sensor bracket shifted. The rail has to be checked. The front structure must be measured. The calibration procedure adds another line item. The part is only available through one network. Labor is 39 hours. Total estimate, $9,800. Now picture the same scene in a car whose structure is designed to keep that hit outside the expensive zones. The bumper absorbs, the bolt-on panel takes the visible damage, the inner structure does not move. The protected components stay protected. The call comes back different. We can swap the outer panel, repaint the damaged area, and you should have it back in 2 days. Estimate, $1,100 to $1,800. That difference is not theoretical to your audience. That difference is the line between irritation and financial injury. And it is why the most useful car of the next decade may not be the one with the best range, the loudest hype, or the cleverest interface. It may be the one that makes a parking lot mistake survivable.
The slow damage that drains retirement. But accidents are not the only way cars quietly drain retirement money. There is a slower form of damage, and it is every bit as dangerous because people adapt to it one bill at a time. If you live in Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, upstate New York, or anywhere road salt is part of winter, the underside of your car is under attack from months every year. If you live in Florida, coastal Texas, or any humid coastal region, the chemistry is slower but relentless. Moisture finds metal. Heat expands and contracts it. Protective finishes weaken. Tiny changes accumulate. And because this process is quiet, drivers often underestimate it until the bill arrives. The mechanic says a mounting point is compromised. A bracket is corroded. A structural area is no longer worth repairing. The estimate is not one big disaster. It is 700 here, 1,100 there, 900 6 months later. By year 8, 9, or 10, you have spent several $1,000s simply trying to keep a car trustworthy. Think about a retired couple in Michigan. The car starts, it moves, so they keep telling themselves they will deal with the underside next spring. Then the next estimate comes in. A corroded point affects another part. The next winter arrives before the previous repair feels finished. That is how trust leaks out of a car long before the engine dies. That is why long-term corrosion resistance is not a luxury feature. For an older driver, it is a money feature. It is a dignity feature. It is the difference between owning a car that ages predictably and owning one that slowly turns into a negotiation you lose every winter. If the Model 2's chassis and coating system truly hold up better over 10 to 15 years, then the value is not just fewer rust problems. The value is fewer conversations that begin with, "You can fix it, but I'm not sure it's worth it."
The bill that can kill an EV. Now we need to talk about the bill that can wipe out every promised saving on an EV. The battery pack. This is where the stakes become really real. On an electric vehicle, battery-related damage is not just another repair category. It is the financial heartbeat of the entire car. If a collision compromises the enclosure,
pushes force into the wrong mounting areas, allows moisture intrusion, or creates a thermal management problem, the repair can move into 5 figures fast: 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. At that point, you are not discussing maintenance anymore. You are discussing whether the vehicle is economically recoverable. That is why collision energy management matters so much. If Tesla has truly designed the Model 2's structure to redirect impact away from the battery and drivetrain, then that is not a subtle engineering note. That is the decision that determines whether a moderate accident remains a repairable event or becomes a total financial event. And here's where age changes everything. At 30, a catastrophic repair is infuriating. At 71, it can alter the next 3 years of your life, not only because of the money, but because of the exhaustion, the calls, the insurance paperwork, the waiting, the uncertainty, the humiliating feeling that one bad hit has pushed you closer to dependence than you wanted to be. And let us be honest about what happens after that. You start limiting trips. You put off visits that are not urgent. You avoid night driving because you don't trust the vehicle anymore. The damage from a bad ownership decision is never just mechanical. It slowly teaches you to live smaller. A car that shields its most expensive components is not just cheaper to own, it's harder to regret.
Why complex repairs cost you more? There is another uncomfortable truth here. The current repair ecosystem profits when complexity wins. That does not mean body shops are evil. It means modern cars are increasingly built in ways that turn simple damage into layered labor. Frame machines, calibration equipment, specialized ordering, brand-specific procedures. The more steps a repair requires, the more chances there are for labor hours, markup, delays, and secondary costs to grow. Take one common example. A bumper repair used to be a bumper repair. Now it can include sensor aiming, camera checks, radar alignment, software clearing, and documented calibration procedures before the shop releases the car. Even when the damage looks small, the list of required steps can make the invoice behave like a luxury problem. That is exactly the kind of hidden escalation older owners need a car to resist. That is why repair-friendly design matters. If the Model 2 truly uses more modular outer sections and more predictable mounting architecture, then a larger share of the bill can stay in parts instead of labor. More shops can potentially do the work. More inventory can move through regional supply instead of bottlenecking in one service lane. The owner has more options, which usually means the owner keeps more leverage. And leverage matters when you are on fixed income. A repair-friendly car does not just save money, it reduces the number of systems, gatekeepers, and waiting periods standing between you and normal life.
Is Model 2 harder to regret? So what would all this mean if Tesla actually delivers? It would mean 4 things. Minor impacts would be less likely to become catastrophic estimates. The car would be more likely to age slowly and predictably instead of corroding into a money pit. The battery and drivetrain would be better protected from the kind of damage that destroys the economics of EV ownership. And repairs would be more likely to stay in the realm of straightforward replacement instead of disappearing into labor-heavy complexity. Put all of that together, and the Model 2 begins to look different from the average cheap EV story. Not because it is exciting, not because it is futuristic, but because it could be the first budget EV designed around a question older buyers actually ask. Will this thing still be serving me faithfully at 79 without costing me 10 years of sleep? That is the real test. Not whether the rumored price is
$12,000 or $25,000, not whether the launch is dramatic, not whether the internet calls it a revolution. The real question is whether the next car you buy is harder to regret.
So here is the honest bottom line. Tesla has not yet confirmed every detail we discussed. We still do not know the exact repair economics, the insurance behavior, the service coverage in early years, or how the chassis will perform across many climates at real scale. Those are meaningful unknowns, and this channel will keep tracking them carefully. But if this design direction is real, then the Model 2 matters for one reason above all others. It may be the first EV built not just to lower the purchase price, but to lower the chance that one bad afternoon, one bad winter, or one bad repair estimate can reach into your retirement and take something from you. And for this audience, that is the story. If you want to see where this goes next, type "worth waiting" in the comments. If you want real-world proof before you believe any of it, type "prove it first." I read the comments because they tell me exactly where the real fear still lives. Subscribe if you want analysis that protects your judgment instead of pressuring it. Drive safe, stay independent, and I will see you in the next one.